The massive alien ships appeared in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning in 2387. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the sleek vessels hover like silver daggers against the black of space. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he couldn't look away from humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. The Zeltharian Empire had arrived without warning, their ships simply materializing out of hyperspace with technology that made Earth's best vessels look like toys. Their leader, High Commander Vextar, had immediately opened communication channels and requested a meeting. His words were translated by advanced computers, but his tone came through clearly enough. He spoke like a king addressing peasants. "Your species has finally developed space travel," Vextar had said during their first conversation. "The galaxy is a dangerous place for newcomers. We offer protection and partnership." Now, 3 weeks later, Morrison found himself in the most important negotiation in human history. The conference room aboard the Zeltharian flagship was impressive, with walls that seemed to be made of living crystal and chairs that adjusted themselves to each person's body. Morrison sat across from Vextar and his advisors, trying to hide his nervousness behind a calm expression. Captain Lisa Bennett sat beside Morrison, her sharp eyes studying every detail of the alien technology around them. She was Earth's best military engineer, and Morrison valued her opinion above all others. Her tablet was filled with notes and sketches of everything she had observed during their visit to the alien ship. "Earth faces many threats," Vextar continued, his tall, blue-skinned form imposing even while seated. "The Krex dominion has been expanding into this sector. They view new species as either slaves or resources to be consumed. We can offer you protection, but you must contribute to your own defense." Morrison leaned forward. "What kind of contribution are we talking about?" "Ships," one of Vextar's advisors answered. "We have a fleet of 12 warships that we can sell to your people. They are powerful vessels capable of defending your world against any threat." Bennett spoke up for the first time. "May we inspect these ships before any agreement is made?" Vextar's expression showed what might have been amusement. "Of course. We believe in honest dealing. You will find these vessels are battle-tested veterans with proven designs." The tour of the warships took place the following day. Morrison and Bennett, along with a team of Earth's best engineers and military officers, were shuttled to a massive space dock hidden behind one of Jupiter's moons. The 12 ships waited in the dock like sleeping giants, each one larger than Earth's biggest space station. Bennett walked through the corridors of the lead vessel, running her hands along the walls and examining the control systems. The ship was impressive, no doubt about it. The hull was thick and appeared strong, the weapons looked powerful, and the engines were massive. But something bothered her. "Admiral," she whispered to Morrison as they examined the bridge. "Look at these wall panels. Do you see those dark spots?" Morrison studied the areas she pointed to. They looked like stains or discoloration in the metal. "What do you think it is?" "I'm not sure. Could be normal wear, but it's in odd places, and look at this control panel." She pointed to a section where the metal seemed slightly pitted. "This looks like corrosion damage." When Bennett raised her concerns with their Zeltharian guide, Ambassador Zeketh, he waved dismissively. "These ships have seen many battles. The marks you see are badges of honor, proof that they have survived where others have fallen. We do not sell untested vessels to our allies." The price for the 12 ships was steep. Earth would need to provide rare minerals from its asteroid belt, along with detailed information about human computer technology and manufacturing processes. President Robert Hayes and Defense Secretary Maria Rodriguez had authorized Morrison to make the deal if he felt it was necessary. That evening, Morrison and Bennett met privately in his quarters aboard Luna Station. Through the viewport, they could see the Zeltharian ships hanging in space like monuments to an advanced civilization. "What do you really think about those ships?" Morrison asked. Bennett was quiet for a long moment. "They're old, Jake, really old. The technology is advanced beyond anything we have, but it's also outdated by their standards. I think we're buying their cast-offs." "But they'll still be better than anything we can build ourselves?" "Probably. But I don't like being treated like children who don't know any better. There's something they're not telling us. Morrison stared out at the alien vessels. "We don't have a choice, Lisa. If this Krex Dominion is as dangerous as they say, we need protection. Our own ships wouldn't last 5 minutes against technology like this." The signing ceremony took place aboard the Zeltharian flagship with great fanfare. Morrison signed the documents with a pen made from Martian steel, while Vextar used some kind of energy stylus that left glowing marks on the contract. Cameras from both species recorded the historic moment. Earth and the Zeltharian Empire are now allies, Vextar announced. Together we will face the dangers of the galaxy. As the ceremony concluded, Morrison noticed Vexatar exchange glances with his advisors. There was something in those looks that made him uncomfortable. It reminded him of card players who knew they held a winning hand. The transfer of the ships happened quickly. Zeltharian crews moved the vessels to Earth orbit and provided basic training to human crews. Captain Tony Mitchell was assigned command of the first ship, renamed the UES Defender. He was excited about commanding such an advanced vessel despite Bennett's warnings about the ship's condition. Within a week, all 12 ships were in human hands. The Zeltharian fleet departed Earth space with minimal ceremony, leaving behind only a small diplomatic mission. Morrison watched them go from his office window, feeling like he had just signed a deal with beings far more clever than he had imagined. Bennett joined him at the window. "I've been studying the technical manuals they left us," she said. "There are gaps in the information, important systems that aren't fully explained. Can we figure them out ourselves? Maybe, but it will take time, and I have a feeling we don't have much of that." 3 months later, intelligence reports began arriving about increased Krex Dominion activity in nearby star systems. Several human colonies reported strange ships appearing at the edge of their sensor range before disappearing. Again, it seemed the galaxy's predators had noticed Earth's new alliance and were testing its strength. Morrison knew that humanity's real test was coming soon. He just hoped the ships they had bought would be enough to protect everything they held dear. In his heart, though, he suspected that Captain Bennett's concerns were about to be proven correct in the worst possible way. Captain Tony Mitchell felt proud as he sat in the command chair of the UES Defender. The ship hummed around him with alien technology that humanity was still learning to understand. 6 months had passed since Earth acquired the Zeltharian warships, and today would be his first real test of the vessel's capabilities. The mission was simple enough. Pirates had been attacking cargo ships near the outer colonies, and the Defender was being sent to patrol the area. Mitchell's crew of 200 was well trained and eager to prove themselves worthy of such an advanced ship. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, announced Lieutenant Gary Stone from the sensor station. 3 vessels moving fast toward the cargo convoy. Mitchell stood up and moved to the tactical display. The enemy ships looked small compared to the Defender, but they were fast and seemed to be armed with modern weapons. This would be a good test of what their new ship could do. "Red alert," Mitchell ordered. "All hands to battle stations. Weapons, target the lead pirate vessel." The ship's weapon systems came online with a series of beeps and electronic sounds. Chief Weapons Officer Karen White reported that all systems showed green on her displays. Everything looked perfect for their first real combat mission. The pirate ships opened fire first, sending bright energy beams toward the Defender. The shots struck the ship's shields and scattered harmlessly into space. Mitchell smiled. The alien shields were working exactly as advertised. "Return fire," he commanded. The Defender's main guns fired, sending powerful energy blasts toward the pirates. But something was wrong. The shots missed their targets by a wide margin, and the weapon system started flashing warning lights. "Sir, I'm getting error messages from the targeting computer," White reported, her voice showing the first hints of concern. Before Mitchell could respond, more alarms started sounding throughout the ship. The lights flickered and he could hear strange groaning sounds from the hull around them. "Engineering to bridge," came the voice of Chief Engineer Dan Foster over the communication system. "We're showing massive system failures down here. The reactor is running too hot, and I'm seeing stress fractures in the primary hull supports." Mitchell felt his confidence draining away. "How is that possible? We're barely into the fight." The pirate ships continued their attack, and now their shots were getting through the failing shields. The Defender shook with each impact, and more. Systems began shutting down around them. Life support is failing, announced the ship's medical officer, Dr. Carol Martinez. Atmosphere processors are offline and we're losing air pressure in sections 7 through 12. The situation went from bad to worse in seconds. The artificial gravity failed, sending crew members floating through the corridors. Emergency. Lighting came on as the main power systems overloaded. Through the viewport, Mitchell could see pieces of the ship's hull breaking away and drifting into space. All hands abandon ship, Mitchell ordered, his heart breaking as he gave the command. This is not a drill. All hands to the escape pods immediately. The crew moved with training and discipline even as their ship fell apart around them. Mitchell was the last to leave the bridge, staying behind to make sure everyone else got out safely. As he sealed himself into an escape pod, he watched through the small window as the UES Defender broke apart completely, its pieces scattering across space like expensive confetti. 2 days later, Captain Lisa Bennett stood in a secure conference room deep inside Earth's military headquarters. Around the table sat Admiral Morrison, President Hayes, Defense Secretary Rodriguez, and the heads of Earth's best engineering teams. The mood was grim. The Defender was completely destroyed, Bennett reported. Captain Mitchell and his crew were rescued by a cargo ship, but we lost the vessel and all its equipment. The pirates escaped without a scratch. Dr. Sam Parker, one of Earth's top materials scientists, looked up from his tablet. I've been analyzing the wreckage that we recovered. The metal shows signs of advanced corrosion throughout the hull. This isn't recent damage. These stress patterns have been building for years, maybe decades. Engineer Kelly Wright nodded in agreement. The computer systems were held together with patch jobs and temporary fixes. Some of the circuits were so old they were using technologies we abandoned 50 years ago. Admiral Morrison rubbed his forehead. Are you telling me that all 12 ships are in this condition? We need to inspect them immediately, Bennett replied. If the Defender is representative of what we bought, then we have 11 more disasters waiting to happen. The inspection of the remaining ships took 3 weeks and confirmed everyone's worst fears. Every vessel showed the same problems. Hulls were riddled with tiny cracks that would grow larger under stress. Engines were operating at a fraction of their designed power. Weapon systems were so outdated they couldn't penetrate the shields of modern ships. Life support systems failed regularly, and computer networks crashed without warning. President Hayes called an emergency meeting with the Zeltharian diplomatic mission. Ambassador Zeketh arrived at the presidential palace with the same arrogant attitude he had shown during the original negotiations. The ships were delivered as promised, Zeketh said when confronted with the evidence of their poor condition. The contract stated that we would provide 12 warships. It said nothing about their age or condition. You told us they were battle-tested veterans, Admiral Morrison accused. You made it sound like they were proven, reliable vessels. Zeketh's expression showed what might have been amusement. They are veterans. They have survived many battles, which is more than can be said for newer ships that have never been tested in combat. We fulfilled our agreement exactly as written. Then our alliance is over, President Hayes declared. We demand a full refund of everything we paid. That is not possible, Zeketh replied calmly. You see, Earth now has obligations to fulfill. The Krex Dominion has been expanding toward this sector and they must be stopped. Your ships, old as they may be, are still more powerful than anything your species could build alone. You will use them to fight the Krex as planned. The truth hit Admiral Morrison like a physical blow. You never intended for us to survive those battles, did you? You sold us junk and expect us to die fighting your enemies with it. Your species is new to galactic politics, Zeketh said. Every new race must prove its worth through sacrifice. If you survive, you will have earned your place in the galactic community. If you do not, then you are not worthy of survival. President Hayes stood up, his face red with anger. Get out. Get off our planet and don't come back. After the Zeltharian ambassador left, the room fell silent. Everyone understood the situation now. Earth had been played for fools, stripped of its resources and set up to be cannon fodder in an alien war. What are our options? President Hayes asked. Admiral Morrison looked around the table. We could try to repair the ships, but that would take years and might not even be possible with our current technology. Or? The President prompted. Captain Bennett spoke up for the first time. We build our own ships. We take what we've learned from studying the alien technology, and we make something better. Dr. Parker shook his head. Lisa, we don't have the industrial capacity or the knowledge base to build anything that could compete with galactic-level technology. Maybe not, Bennett admitted, but we have something they don't expect. We have human creativity and the ability to think outside their established patterns. They've been using the same designs for centuries because they work. But what if we could make them work better? President Hayes looked around the table. How long would something like that take? Give me 18 months and unlimited resources, Bennett said. I think we can surprise them. The president was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. You have whatever you need, Captain. But understand this. If you fail, Earth becomes a slave world or gets wiped out completely. No pressure. Bennett smiled for the first time in weeks. I work better under pressure, sir. Just give me the chance to show these aliens what humans can do when they get angry. 6 months after the disaster with the UES Defender, Captain Lisa Bennett stood in the middle of what had once been an asteroid mining facility in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. Now it was humanity's most secret and important project. The BO facility had been gutted and rebuilt as a combination research laboratory, engineering workshop, and shipyard. Dr. Alex Stone walked beside her through the main work area, pointing out different sections where teams of scientists and engineers labored around the clock. The physicist had left his comfortable university position to join Bennett's project, bringing with him some of Earth's brightest minds. The power systems team is making real progress, Stone explained, as they passed a section filled with humming, machinery and flashing displays. We've figured out how the Zeltharian energy cores work, but more importantly, we've found ways to make them more efficient. Bennett stopped to examine a device that looked like a crystal surrounded by metal rings. How much more efficient? About 30%, replied Dr. Nina Foster, the materials scientist who had been working on the power systems. The aliens use a brute force approach. Lots of power, but lots of waste. We've developed focusing systems that channel the energy more precisely. They moved to the next section, where teams were working on what looked like pieces of ship hull. The metal had a strange, almost organic appearance, and it seemed to shift colors slightly in the light. This is where we've made our biggest breakthrough, Stone said proudly. The Zeltharian hull material is strong, but it's also brittle. It can take a lot of punishment, but when it fails catastrophically. We've created a composite that combines their materials with human polymers. Bennett ran her hand along the surface of a hull section. It felt warm and slightly flexible. What does that give us? Self-healing properties, Foster answered. Small fractures seal themselves automatically. It's also much lighter than the original material, which means we can make our ships faster and more maneuverable. The tour continued through sections dedicated to weapons development, computer systems, and life support. Each area showed the same pattern. Human engineers had taken alien technology, understood how it worked, and then found ways to improve. In the weapons section, Chief Engineer Dan Foster, who had survived the Defender disaster, was working with a team to redesign the targeting systems. The alien weapons are powerful, but they're designed for fighting big, slow targets, he explained. We've made them more accurate and faster to track moving enemies. The computer systems section was run by a young programmer named Janet Cole. She had been working on the ship's artificial intelligence systems, trying to make them more responsive and adaptive than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zeltharian computers are like libraries, Cole explained. They store lots of information, but they can't learn or adapt quickly. Our systems will be able to analyze enemy tactics in real time and develop counter-strategies during battle. Bennett was impressed by what she saw, but she knew they were running out of time. Intelligence reports showed that Krek's Dominion forces were moving closer to human space. Admiral Morrison was doing his best to delay any confrontations using the remaining alien ships, but everyone knew those vessels were too unreliable for real combat. How much longer until we have a working prototype? Bennett asked. Stone looked at his tablet, checking the latest progress reports. 8 weeks, maybe 10. The first ship is coming together faster than we expected. They walked to the main construction bay, where the prototype vessel was taking shape. It was smaller than the Zeltharian ships, but it looked sleeker and more purposeful. The hull had the flowing lines of the alien design, but with distinctly human modifications. Additional armor plating, redundant systems, and modular components that could be quickly replaced during battle. What are we calling her? Bennett asked. The UES Retribution, Stone replied. Seemed appropriate given the circumstances. Work on the Retribution continued day and night. Bennett had moved her quarters to the asteroid facility so she could oversee every aspect of the construction. She barely slept, surviving on coffee and determination. The weapons systems were installed first. They combined Zeltharian energy weapons with human targeting computers and adaptive software. The result was a weapons array that could adjust its power output and firing patterns based on enemy defenses. The engines were next. Human engineers had improved the alien propulsion system by adding multiple redundant power feeds and better cooling systems. The Retribution would be faster and more maneuverable than any ship the aliens had ever built. The ship's computer core was Bennett's personal pride. It used quantum processors developed by human scientists, combined with alien memory storage and learning algorithms that Janet Cole had written herself. The artificial intelligence could process information faster than any system in known space. Most importantly, every system on the ship was designed to work with every other system. The Zeltharian ships had been built in sections that barely communicated with each other. The Retribution was designed as a single integrated machine where all parts worked together seamlessly. Admiral Morrison visited the facility during the final weeks of construction. He walked through the ship with Bennett, marveling at what her team had accomplished. It's smaller than I expected, he said as they stood on the bridge. Size isn't everything, Bennett replied. This ship can do things that would take a Zeltharian vessel twice as large to accomplish. Everything is more efficient, more responsive, and more reliable. Morrison sat in the captain's chair and looked at the displays around him. The controls were intuitive, designed for human hands and human thinking patterns. How do you know it will work in actual combat? We don't, Bennett admitted. But it has to work. It's our only chance to prove that humanity deserves to survive in this galaxy. The Retribution's first test came sooner than anyone expected. A distress call arrived from the colony world of New Boston, reporting that Krex Dominion ships were attacking civilian targets. Admiral Morrison made the decision to send the new ship on its maiden voyage. Bennett took command of the Retribution herself, with a crew of volunteers who understood they were flying an untested vessel into combat. As the ship prepared to leave the asteroid facility, she stood on the bridge and addressed her crew. We're about to find out if 18 months of work was worth it, she announced. This ship represents the best of human engineering and alien technology, but more than that, it represents our refusal to accept defeat. The Retribution's engines came online with a smooth hum that was nothing like the rough growl of the Zeltharian vessels. The ship moved out of the facility with grace and power, heading toward its first battle and humanity's chance to prove itself worthy of survival. As they entered hyperspace, Bennett felt a mixture of excitement and fear. Everything they had worked for was about to be tested. Either the Retribution would prove that human innovation could triumph over alien arrogance, or Earth would lose its best chance at independence. The ship's artificial intelligence spoke in a calm, synthesized voice. Estimated arrival at New Boston in 4 hours, Captain. All systems operating within normal parameters. Bennett smiled. 4 hours until they found out if humanity had built a ship that could change the galaxy, or an expensive tomb that would carry them all to their deaths. Captain Lisa Bennett stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution as the ship dropped out of hyperspace near New Boston. Through the main viewport, she could see the colony world burning. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers across the planets. Surface as Krex Dominion warships bombarded civilian targets. 3 enemy vessels, reported Lieutenant Gary Stone from the sensor station. 2 cruisers and 1 destroyer. They're concentrating their fire on the main population centers. Bennett felt anger burning in her chest. The Kreks were not just conquering the world. They were slaughtering innocent people for sport. This was exactly the kind of brutality the Zeltharians had warned about, but now Earth stood alone against it. "All stations report ready for combat," announced Commander Janet Cole from the operations station. The ship's computer systems hummed with quiet efficiency around them, a sharp contrast to the failing alien vessels they had grown used to. "Target the destroyer first," Bennett ordered. "It's the smallest ship, so we can test our systems against a manageable opponent." The Retribution moved toward the enemy formation with smooth precision. Its engines responded instantly to every command, and the ship's artificial intelligence was already analyzing the Kreks vessels and identifying weak points in their design. The enemy ships noticed the approaching human vessel and turned to face this new threat. Bennett could imagine their confusion. Earth's other ships were known to be unreliable and poorly maintained. They probably expected an easy victory. "Enemy ships are targeting us," Stone reported. "Incoming fire." Bright energy beams lanced out from the Kreks vessels, striking the Retribution's shields. The ship barely shuddered under the impact. The improved shield generators held steady, absorbing and dispersing the enemy fire with no sign of strain. "Shields at 96%, Cole announced. "No damage to any systems." Bennett smiled. The first test was passed. Now for the second one. "Return fire," she commanded. "Full power to main weapons." The Retribution's guns fired, sending streams of focused energy toward the Kreks destroyer. But these were not the crude, inaccurate weapons from the old Zeltharian ships. The human-designed targeting systems tracked the enemy vessel with perfect precision, and the adaptive weapons adjusted their power output in real time. The destroyer's shields collapsed under the first volley. The second volley punched through its hull like paper, and the third caused the ship to explode in a brilliant flash of light. "Target destroyed," Stone reported, his voice filled with amazement. The two remaining Kreks cruisers responded with increased firepower, pouring everything they had at the human ship. The Retribution's shields flared brightly but held firm. Bennett could feel the ship's artificial intelligence working, learning from each enemy shot and adjusting the shield frequencies to provide better protection. "The AI is adapting to their weapons," Cole announced. "Shield efficiency is increasing with each hit we take." "Target the larger cruiser," Bennett ordered. "Let's see how they handle a real fight." The battle that followed was unlike anything previously seen in galactic warfare. The Retribution moved with fluid grace, dodging enemy fire while returning precise, devastating shots. Its weapons learned from each exchange, finding new ways to penetrate enemy defenses. The first cruiser lasted 3 minutes before its reactor exploded. The second cruiser tried to flee, but the Retribution was faster and more maneuverable than anything the Kreks had ever encountered. It caught the enemy ship before it could reach hyperspace and destroyed it with a single, perfectly aimed shot to its engine core. "All enemy vessels destroyed," Stone reported. "The orbital space around New Boston is clear." Bennett looked at the tactical display, hardly believing what she was seeing. 3 enemy warships destroyed, and the Retribution had barely been scratched. More importantly, the ship's systems had performed flawlessly throughout the entire engagement. "Send a message to New Boston Control," she ordered. "Tell them the threat has been eliminated and that relief ships are on the way." As the Retribution moved into orbit around New Boston, Bennett reviewed the battle recordings with her senior officers. The ship's sensors had captured every detail of the engagement, and the artificial intelligence had already begun developing new tactical strategies based on what it had learned. "The Kreks ships were using standard galactic warfare tactics," observed Commander Cole. "Lots of firepower, heavy armor, but they assumed their enemies would fight the same way they do. They had no idea how to handle our maneuverability and adaptive weapons." Lieutenant Stone nodded in agreement. "Our targeting systems were hitting them before they even finished aiming at us. And when they did manage to score hits, our shields were already adapting to their weapon frequencies." Bennett felt a surge of pride in what her team had accomplished. But she also knew this was just the beginning. Word of the Retribution's capabilities would spread quickly through galactic communication networks. Soon, every major power would Know that humanity had developed something new and dangerous. 3 days later, Admiral Morrison arrived at New Boston aboard one of the remaining Zeltharian ships. He met with Bennett in the Retribution's conference room to review the battle data and discuss what it meant for Earth's future. The recordings are being analyzed by every intelligence service in the galaxy, Morrison told her. The Zeltharians are particularly interested in understanding how we destroyed 3 Krex ships so easily. What's their reaction? Bennett asked. Officially, they're pleased that their allies achieved such a decisive victory. Unofficially, they're terrified. High Command is demanding detailed specifications of the Retribution's capabilities. Bennett leaned back in her chair. And what? Did you tell them? That Earth's military secrets are not for sale, Morrison replied with a grin. I believe Ambassador Zeketh was quite upset by that response. Over the following weeks, reports began arriving of increased alien activity throughout human space. Long-range sensors detected Zeltharian and Krex ships conducting reconnaissance missions near Earth's colonies. Both species seemed to be trying to gather intelligence on humanity's new capabilities. Meanwhile, back at the asteroid facility, Dr. Stone's team was working frantically to complete additional ships based on the Retribution's design. The successful battle at New Boston had proved the concept worked, and now they needed to build a fleet that could protect all of Earth's territories. How many ships can we have ready in the next 6 months? Bennett asked during one of her visits to the facility. 36, maybe 40 if we can get more raw materials, Stone replied. We've streamlined the construction process based on what we learned building the Retribution. Each new ship will be better than the last. Bennett walked through the expanded construction bays, watching as human workers and automated systems assembled the components of Earth's new navy. Each ship incorporated improvements suggested by the Retribution's artificial intelligence. Weapons were more powerful, shields were more efficient, and engines were more reliable. More importantly, each ship was designed to work together with the others. Unlike the Zeltharian vessels, which operated as individual units, the human fleet would function as a single coordinated fighting force. The aliens have never seen anything like this, Stone said as they watched technicians install the quantum communication systems that would link all the ships together. Their fleets are collections of individual ships with separate commanders, who barely communicate with each other. Our ships will share information instantly and coordinate their attacks in real time. As the construction work continued, intelligence reports brought increasingly troubling news. The Krex Dominion was massing a large fleet near the border of human space, apparently preparing for a major offensive. At the same time, Zeltharian forces were conducting unusual maneuvers that suggested they might be planning something of their own. Admiral Morrison called Bennett back to Earth for an emergency strategy session. As they met in the secure conference room where the whole crisis had begun, both officers understood that humanity's real test was approaching. We estimate they'll move against us within the next 3 months, Morrison told her. The question is whether our new fleet will be ready in time. Bennett looked at the star charts showing enemy positions around human space. It doesn't matter if we're ready or not. This fight is coming whether we want it or not. At least now, we have ships that can actually fight back. Outside the conference room windows, construction crews worked around the clock to complete the orbital shipyards where Earth's new fleet was being assembled. Humanity was about to face the greatest challenge in its history. But for the first time since the aliens had arrived, they would face it with weapons worthy of their courage. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, the newest and most powerful ship in Earth's fleet. Around him, the displays showed 36 other human vessels moving in perfect formation through hyperspace. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering and alien technology, but more than that, they were proof that humanity refused to be victims. 1 year had passed since Captain Bennett's victory at New Boston, and the galaxy had changed dramatically. Word of human capabilities had spread through every major civilization, causing fear, respect, and in some cases, desperate attempts to acquire the new technology. Dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds, announced Navigator Kelly Wright from her station. Proxima Station is directly ahead. Morrison felt his stomach tighten with anticipation. Today would determine whether humanity earned its place as a free species in the galaxy, or whether Earth would be conquered and its people enslaved. The combined Zeltharian and Krex armada waiting at Proxima Station numbered over 200 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Captain Lisa Bennett, now promoted to admiral and serving as Morrison's tactical advisor, stood beside him studying the sensor readings. Her face was calm, but Morrison could see the intensity in her eyes. This battle would test everything they had built together. Enemy fleet detected, reported Sensor Officer Gary Stone. 214 vessels, Zeltharian and Krex ships in mixed formations. They're positioned around Proxima Station, in defensive positions. Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. Today we face an enemy that believes humanity should bow before their superior technology and ancient power. They sold us broken ships and expected us to die fighting their wars. Instead, we built something better. Today we show them what happens when you underestimate human determination. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in a formation that no galactic military had ever seen before. Instead of the traditional line formations used by every known species, the human ships moved in a complex three-dimensional pattern that allowed them to support each other from multiple angles while presenting minimal target profiles to enemy weapons. High Commander Vex Tar, aboard the Zeltharian flagship Eternal Glory, stared at his tactical displays in confusion. The human formation made no sense according to traditional galactic warfare doctrine. Ships were supposed to form battle lines and trade fire until one side retreated or was destroyed. Order all ships to target the human flagship, Vex Tar commanded. Once their leader is destroyed, the rest will surrender. The alien fleet opened fire, sending thousands of energy beams toward the human formation, but the human ships were already moving, their quantum communication systems allowing them to coordinate their movements with split-second precision. They flowed around the incoming fire like water, avoiding most of the shots while returning, devastating accurate fire of their own. Admiral Bennett watched the tactical display as the battle unfolded exactly as she had planned. Their formation is breaking up, she reported to Morrison. They're trying to fight us individually instead of as a coordinated force. The human ships pressed their advantage, using their superior speed and maneuverability to attack enemy vessels from unexpected angles. The alien ships, designed for traditional warfare, couldn't adapt quickly enough to the human tactics. Commander Janet Cole, now serving as the fleet's artificial intelligence coordinator, monitored the data streams flowing between all 37 human ships. The AI network is learning from every exchange, she reported. Each ship's targeting is getting more accurate as the battle continues. Morrison watched as the first enemy ships began to explode under concentrated human fire. The Zeltharians and Krex were discovering that their numerical advantage meant nothing when they couldn't hit what they were shooting at. Target priority update, Bennett announced. Focus fire on the command ships, take out their leaders, and the rest will lose coordination. The human fleet adjusted its attack patterns, concentrating on the largest enemy vessels. The aliens' heavy armor and powerful shields, which had protected them for centuries of galactic warfare, proved inadequate against weapons that adapted and learned with each shot. Captain Tony Mitchell, now commanding the UES Defender II, led a squadron of 6 ships against a group of Krex cruisers. His first command had been destroyed by faulty alien technology, but now he flew a ship that responded to his every thought and desire. This is for everyone who died in junk ships, he said as his weapons tore through enemy hull plating. The battle raged for 4 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The human ships fought as a single organism, each vessel supporting the others, while the alien fleet fell apart into individual fights that they could not win. When High Commander Vex Tar's flagship finally exploded, the remaining Zeltharian ships began to surrender. The Krex forces, leaderless and confused, continued fighting until their ships were destroyed or disabled one by one. Admiral Morrison stood on his bridge, looking at the tactical display showing scattered enemy wreckage and the intact human fleet. Only 2 of his ships had been lost and both crews had been rescued before their vessels were destroyed. Fleet-wide communication, he ordered. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. The enemy fleet has been defeated. Humanity stands free in the galaxy. The cheers that echoed through the communication channels came not just from human crews, but from representatives of a dozen smaller species who had joined the human fleet during the past year. Word of Earth's growing power had reached the oppressed, peoples of the galaxy, and they had come seeking protection and alliance. 3 hours after the battle ended, surviving enemy commanders were brought aboard the Vengeance as prisoners. High Commander Vextar, stripped of his rank and authority, was escorted to the conference room where the war's fate would be decided. Admiral Bennett sat across from the former Zeltharian leader, studying his defeated expression. "You sold us broken ships and expected us to die fighting your enemies," she said quietly. "Instead, we built something you never imagined possible." Vexatar looked up at her with eyes that showed both fear and grudging respect. "How did you do it? Your species was barely capable of spaceflight 2 years ago." "We learned from your mistakes," Bennett replied. "Your people became so arrogant that you stopped innovating. You've used the same ship designs and tactics for centuries because they worked against everyone else. But we looked at your technology with fresh eyes and made it better." 6 months later, representatives from across the galaxy gathered aboard the UES Retribution for the signing of the new Galactic Cooperation Treaty. The Zeltharian Empire had been dissolved, its former territories now governed by local councils, under human protection. The Krex Dominion had agreed to extensive territorial concessions and war reparations. Admiral Morrison, now serving as Earth's galactic ambassador, watched as dozens of species signed the documents that would reshape interstellar politics. The treaty established humanity as the galaxy's primary peacekeeping force, with the responsibility to protect smaller species from aggressive empires. "It's hard to believe it all started with 12 broken ships," he said to Admiral Bennett, as they watched the ceremony. "Maybe that was the best thing that could have happened," Bennett replied. "If they had sold us good ships, we might never have learned to build better ones ourselves." President Hayes, now in his second term thanks to humanity's galactic success, addressed the gathering. "Today marks the beginning of a new age in galactic civilization, an age where strength comes not from dominating others, but from protecting those who cannot protect themselves." As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Bennett looked out through the conference room's viewport at the human fleet stationed around the Retribution. 57 ships now, with more being built every month in yards throughout human space. Each vessel represented the best of human innovation and determination. High Commander Vextar, now serving as a military advisor to the human fleet in exchange for his freedom, approached Bennett as the other delegates departed. "I underestimated your species," he said simply. "We all did. That was our greatest mistake." Bennett nodded. "Your people ruled the galaxy for thousands of years by being stronger and more advanced than everyone else. But you forgot that someone younger and hungrier would eventually come along. You forgot that technology alone doesn't win wars. Innovation, adaptation, and the willingness to fight for what you believe in, those are what matter." As the UES Retribution prepared to depart for Earth, carrying news of humanity's diplomatic triumph, Bennett reflected on how much had changed. 2 years ago, Earth had been a backward world desperate for protection. Now human ships patrolled the galaxy, ensuring peace and protecting the innocent. The stars that had once seemed so threatening now felt like humanity's natural domain. Earth's children would grow up knowing they lived in a universe where courage and intelligence mattered more than age and arrogance. The galaxy had learned to bow before humanity's dreadnought, but more importantly, humanity had learned that true strength came from helping others rather than conquering them.